Rupert,
Yeah.
what are we doing in a car park in Dorchester?
See these red circles on the ground?
Yeah, what about them?
Palisaded enclosure, 4,500 years ago.
What? Each one of these represents a what?
Oak tree cut down, stood up straight. We don't really know how tall, but tall.
So begins our exploration of the prehistoric sites of Dorchester. Be prepared to have your socks knocked off.
Yes, well, ours are. This must have been an incredibly busy part of the world down here. There's so much around Dorchester. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And this in a car park. I have to say, hats off to the people who actually wanted to preserve it by marking the positions of the timber posts that they had when they were building this place.
Yeah.
It's Waitrose, actually.
Waitrose car park,
Waitrose car park,
Dorchester.
yes. We come to the most salubrious places.
Yeah. You look like you're in a movie. What could happen next in an underground car park? Do you know what, though? I mean, the funny thing is, well, it's not funny exactly, but as we come to these sites and we find ourselves in these ridiculous situations, and what more ridiculous situation than being in a shopping centre car park investigating something that was built 4,500 years ago.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you know, because we're concentrated so much on making a film and pointing a camera about, we sort of fail ourselves to appreciate what exactly it is that we're looking at.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to imagine 4,500 years ago, none of this. And these just enormous timber posts sticking up out of the ground. Part of what? You know, what was going on in and around it.
Yeah.
Because they were huge. They were absolutely huge. This was a wall of something incredibly significant. I do have to wonder, bearing in mind this is in the middle of a Waitrose car park, 4,500 years ago, were more people coming to this than come to Waitrose on a daily basis? I'd love to know. Do we know how extensive this was? How much did they excavate around it when they were building?
I think they did something around about 100 posts of all, but the calculation is that there may have been up to 600 posts all told in the whole circle. And the I think we've got the diameter of it, haven't we?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, we were talking about that, weren't we?
380 metres. Oop,
Diameter.
Get run over. Diameter, yeah.
Was that this one?
Yeah.
380 metres, that's bigger than Avebury.
Yeah. With a circumference of 1.2 kilometres.
That's bigger than Avebury.
Yeah.
I'll say that again. That's bigger than Avebury.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I missed you. Do you want to say it again?
I'll say that again. It's bigger than Avebury. Lovely people have actually put information up.
Well, that's nice of them.
It's interesting that, I mean, a palisaded henge, how many henges were palisaded? But, yeah, as they say, 3 big henges here in Dorchester. This one, Maumbury Rings, going there.
Yeah.
And Mount Pleasant,
Yeah.
going there.
Yeah.
Not sure what we'll be able to show you, but we're going there.
Yeah.
But it's just insane when you think that this one here, that we were just looking at in the car park, as I said, bigger than Avebury. What the hell was going on down here?
3 large local henges were built about 5,000 years ago in the Neolithic period. This henge appears to have fallen out of... They're calling it a henge.
They are calling it a henge.
They're calling it a henge. Fallen out of use in the early Bronze Age, the wooden posts rotted and the site returned to grassland. Mount Pleasant also fell out of use. Stay tuned. But Maumbury Rings, stay tuned as well, remained, and the Romans converted it into an amphitheatre. You have an issue with that,
I do have an issue with that. The Romans converted it into an amphitheatre as if it wasn't one before.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you what, Rupert.
What?
All hail Kenny Brophy. Well, because I'm not sure that would have become aware of these markers in this car park, marking the what's it called, by the way? Greyhound Yard, Timber Circle.
Is this Greyhound Yard?
It's Greyhound Yard, timber set, whatever the lifts. Come on, let's get in the lift, because I know there are some other interesting things that they've done here. Which, where are we? Press the button.
Yeah. Well, it has to be said, all hail Kenny Brophy anyway, really.
Well, yeah.
Where did you read Kenny talking about this then?
Urban prehistorian, what's the thing you have on the web? The Urban Prehistorian blog.
The website of the blog.
Yes. He's well worth following wherever he is, because he's quite active on Twitter, isn't he? Anyway, let's see what we shall see. What you see?
Yeah, look, these are fabulous. They've, and I have to say, I love that they've immortalised this. Because people are walking in and out of the car park all the time, completely oblivious to what's under their feet.
Because, as it's saying down here, Neolithic monument, 2500 BC. And it sort of goes chronologically, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It says what might have been going on in the Bronze Age. Post's gone, but
it's funny when you look at from the Neolithic and coming down through the Bronze Age and Iron Age, and then you'd think we'd be getting more and more developed, but no, you get down to after the Roman occupation, and look, urban decline.
So that's Roman, and that's medieval. Okay. Cool. Another one.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, they look more than long enough, yeah. But it is, I mean, it's something that everybody's inherently interested in, though, because whenever there's a hole in the ground, for instance, people can't help themselves but to look into it.
That's true.
And, sort of like in that there's, down in the CDC in the museum, we've got a workspace and it's got these great big glass panels so people come down and watch us doing what we're doing. And everybody just, sort of want to know what you're doing. It's always interesting to go out and have a chat to them and explain what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and all that sort of business. Yeah. There's just an insatiable curiosity about who we are, where we came from, and certainly our mortal remains is something that
and also
fascinating.
Keeping open about what's going on behind the scenes, which it sounds like, that's...
very much so, yeah.
Oh, nice. Something else I think is really important that never gets talked about, and that's, look, they've included cattle for dragging big, heavy things around. Everybody goes on about how did they move the big stones? How did they do this, that, and the other? No, it wasn't levitation. Cows. It's cows.
Is there anything else we need to say about this?
We could point to that. I love that they've done this. They've actually made us think of it. So many places just get buried when development is done.
Yeah.
But this is cracking. Dorchester was called Dernovaria by the Romans.
It was called what?
Dernovaria.
Very good. Okay. Oh God, what's that? With a bit of luck, hopefully, I don't know, what do you reckon?
Well, I'm sincerely hoping so.
That we'll emerge in the right place on the things we do.
Oh, promising.
I think we're in the right place. You're right back there.
I'm all right back there. You're all right front there.
Yep. So, I suppose
Well,
You may well ask what we're doing here.
well, it should be there.
And don't tread on the farmer's crops either.
I wouldn't dream of it.
Yeah.
Well, that cop straight up in front has got to be the barrow, hasn't it?
The barrow, but nobody knows what barrow we're talking about yet. So, you know, if you say the barrow...
The Conker Barrow.
Conker barrow.
Conker Barrow. Why is it called Conker Barrow?
Well, I don't actually know. But
Is it
I
called-
never,
well, it's called
what I
horse
never
chestnuts on
realised
it.
going up here is that there was such a rise. So a henge on such a high place,
Commanding views.
commanding views.
See, if it was a venue, people coming from miles around, you'd have been able to see it from miles around.
That's right. Anyway, we'll know better when we get up there.
True.
I'm going back to get the camera now.
I thought you might.
Have we told the good folk why we're doing this yet?
No, we probably haven't. Do you know where we are? Look at that. See that imposing spectacle there? That's Mount Pleasant Superhenge. Nothing to see.
One of the most spectacular Neolithic monuments in the whole of the UK.
Yeah.
Probably.
Imagine, 4,500 years ago or so, massive henge here, and for a change, a henge on high ground, so with views right the way down into the valley. So if that ground was cleared, then the view up to the henge would have been pretty awesome from people approaching from different directions, I guess.
Well, let's see how far we can get. I think the main purpose of us being here, not being able to actually see anything on the ground, is to put a drone in the air, see if there's...
And it's a beautiful day for a drone.
Well, yes, it is. Let's do that thing.
What can you see, Michael? I can't see your screen.
Well, I can see the whole of the field pretty much there. And back over.
Any signs of anything underneath with all this corn on top?
Yeah, I think so. There's a few signs, not of the big henge itself, but I think some of the interior details are showing up. So I can see Conker Barrow, I can see where we are coming forward. I was just thinking that we hadn't seen enough from this latest edition of Bug Watch.
Well, I wasn't going to draw attention to your...
What are you going to tell us about critters of the field, though?
your horsefly that was having a good old chomp on your arm.
Oh, yeah.
The thing about horseflies, to vanity, is they're evil little buggers that will bite a hole in your arm. They've got the most beautiful eyes in the universe. They really have.
They do bite, though.
There's some really pretty ground bugs here. Coriaide they are, and
Coriaide.
Coriaide, and they're really elegant little... They're actually bugs that they suck on sap, but they're just pretty.
I don't think I've got the
Critters
lens
are
for it,
pretty.
though, have I, really?
No.
Rupert?
No, mind you, I do have a picture that I've photographed them before. Maybe I'll post some stuff anon.
It's a pity, of course, that we can't get into climb up and down Conker Barrow.
It is.
Yeah, which is in that clump of trees behind you there. And, well, that tells us exactly where we are. The barrow is pretty much on the outer edge of the what would have been the bank.
Yeah.
And at some point or other, if you climbed to the top of it, you'd have been able to have a view right down into the bowl of the henge, I guess.
So it begs the question, what was that about? What, was it
Well,
precursor to just a,
yeah, nice thought.
it's a nice thought. Well, bearing in mind that we're heading on to Maumbury Rings now, and Maumbury Rings, as we mentioned earlier on, where it said, and the Romans turned it into an amphitheatre.
Serious note.
Yeah, serious note. One of the
Is it
things is
possible?
when you think that this was one of the most significant henges, probably, of its time. An absolute monster on the landscape. I mean monster in a nice way. And there is nothing to see of it from the ground. When you just think of the swathes of landscape that you go over all the time, and you think, well, what was there? Just how much is invisible now? If something that big can disappear, all the little things.
Well, thank you for that profundity.
You're not going to be able to focus on that. I doubt it anyway.
I have it.
You have it.
I have it.
They just have the prettiest wing cases.
Excellent. Well done.
I'm still very impressed that they did that in the car park.
Did what in the car? Oh, the
Preserved
thing.
them there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right, because unless people do something like that, that absolutely disappears forever
Yes.
underneath. And you can imagine just how many monuments like that there are disappeared under any town you care to mention.
And we know for a fact that there's an awful lot of developers who, they're under time bonuses and they dig up something and it's hide that quick before the archaeologists come in.
Yeah.
So there's an awful lot of stuff that does get lost.
Illegal though that may be.
Illegal though that may be.
Yeah.
It's going to be warm in there.
It is, isn't it? Oh well, let's be brave.
Maumbury Rings then. How many other places are there still prehistoric remains like this in the middle of the town as opposed to lost underneath the town?
Yeah. It really it gives pause for thought, that.
Yeah.
And just pause for a moment, because I was scanning through my brain, and the only time I can remember anything like it is, of course, the Roman amphitheatre in Cirencester. Yeah, maybe I'll refer to that because I think I've got some footage, lurking about somewhere.
Well, that's it. I mean, there are Roman things.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in
But I
Britain.
suspect
but,
the Cirencester one was a bit like this one. It's an
think?
adopted,
Yeah.
Anyway, to the present. Oh, what is this we see before us?
Looks like Mayberg.
Let's go and let's mount the steps and see what we shall see. Oh. Oh my God.
People quite rightly enjoying the middle of it.
Yeah.
It is the way it should be. And I suspect this might be a friend of ours.
You reckon?
I don't know, but she said she'll be here in
Hello.
a few minutes.
Hello. How you
It's lovely
doing?
to meet you.
And you.
Hi.
How are you
Hi,
doing?
good. How are you doing? What's the point?
Yeah, we're good. It's so nice of you to bother.
Oh, well, you're so close. I thought, well, why not?
That's right, so
And you're always all over the place and doing
That's
so
true.
much.
That's true, we
Might not
are.
have ever had
We
another chance.
So, where do you actually live?
So I live in Portisham, which is about
Right,
it's
okay.
a little village. With lots of standing stones, actually.
Really?
Valley of the Stones.
So, what sort of stones are they?
Well, they're Sarsen stones.
So, I didn't mean geologically. I
Oh.
meant in terms of the stone rows or
Oh no,
dolmens?
as
or
as in burial chambers, barrows with burial
Okay.
chambers, standing
Right.
stones, and some stone circles. 2 or 3 lots.
Nice.
Brilliant.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we'll
I
have
mean,
to
you've
come
got
back
a
then,
lot-
won't we?
Yeah, but
And take you up on that offer of a
yeah.
tea.
There's lots of places to
Yeah.
that you have to go back to, I think.
What was I saying?
You were saying how it's surprising.
How surprising it is. Yeah, well, it is surprising that after how many thousand years, that the banks are still this uneroded, or if they are eroded, you know, how tall were they originally? Yes.
Yeah.
But I think that's another thing where perhaps it's not so massively visited.
It's funny, isn't it? We bemoan the fact that that not enough people are interested in prehistory, but any time we go to a prehistoric site, we want it to ourselves. So what can you do? You can't win. I'm intrigued at the shape of this, to be honest.
Yeah. In that it's not a recognisable.
It's kind of betwixt and between, isn't it?
Well, which is why I wonder how much the Romans messed it about.
Mm.
Well, I think they said there was. I read that there was one entrance when the Romans arrived, and then they made 2 entrances. Although.
Yeah. But it's the overall shape. Would
Yeah.
they have gone to the trouble of changing the shape?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
The thing is that we know that, I mean, the Romans used it for gladiatorial combat and the like.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, the usual things that the Romans used
Yeah.
their amphitheatres for.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, we were filming outside at Waitrose, and the guy came up to us, having recognised us. He was a volunteer from the Dorset Museum.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I didn't think to ask him questions like that, did we?
He probably would know more than I do.
You have no idea how much we appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
We couldn't do this without you. You know.
But you often say that, so that's good. We do know. We do know.
Cool.
You do. You're very good at doing that, and
It's so
and
true,
making
though.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a dynamic, isn't it? And
It's why we do
Yeah.
call you crew because
Yeah.
you know because it couldn't exist without you. Yeah, so it's really nice. Don't land in the henge, man.
Of course. Something you see every day.
Yeah, I question the use of the henge.
Who would have thought?
It's too bizarre that we can choose the first time either of us have been to this henge,
Yeah.
and we pick the day when the air ambulance should come and land right in the middle of the henge. That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I hope if they've...
So, multi-purpose henges. We always
It is-
say.
we did always say they were multi-purpose. I just hope that if they've actually landed because somebody is ill in the houses over there, let's just hope everybody's all
They're
right.
going to be rescued and all will be well.
How far people travelled to get here for whatever mayhem was going on inside, and over how many days they travelled to get here. You know, look at a place like this, and I really do wonder whose games were more depraved, the Neolithic folks who built the place, or the Romans who converted it a little bit.
Converted it a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, was there much difference in principle between the two?
I doubt it.
I don't know. We're conjecturing, of course. And,
We are conjecturing. Facts,
yeah, it's our job, though, to provoke a little thought, isn't it?
It is our job to conjecture.
Yeah.
And this whole notion, oh, do you know what, we bang on about it probably too much. The whole notion of these things being sacred temples and all the rest of it, come off it. It's an arena.
Yeah. Goodness, and what a spectacle.
Yeah.
We were there the day the air ambulance landed
Yeah.
in Maumbury Rings. Oh, come off it. No, really. So, another fine mess we've got ourselves into.
Do you know, it's another place that I've shamefully never visited before. Been driving past it for decades.
The shame.
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 But here we are. We're like 1.5 miles away.
Yeah.
This is just such a busy area.
I'll say, I don't know if this will get picked up and used, but we'll say it again. We'll say it over and over again. The thing that keeps knocking my socks off, not just in terms of, the number of sites that are contemporary with each other, occupying the same area, but the size of them and the numbers of people you need available to achieve such things.
Yeah.
Wasn't so, not only did we think in terms of the Neolithic Stone Age, in terms of skin wearing, primitives, but to have thought of them as the lands as very thinly populated. Nothing could be further from.
No. Meh. Hello. What are you up to? You just got a gate on both sides. I wondered what the significance of the ditch and bank on this side was.
I think it's very clever protection of the main entrance. Isn't it? You're still ashamed?
Definitely.
Never been here?
Definitely.
What are we like?
Well, it just goes to show, you can't see everything, can you? Meh. How you doing?
If we could talk to the animals.
You all right?
No need to panic.
Substantial.
Well, I know, it's not the biggest ditch we've seen, but you do get a sense of scale from it, at least, standing here. And the complexity of the thought that's gone into so defensive. Gee.
How much invading was actually going on?
Well, you do wonder, don't you? Because you don't go to this much effort without good cause.
You all right? It's all right, don't panic. We're good guys.
I have it that there is supposed to be an indication of where the Neolithic causewayed enclosure
Right.
is. So that's what I'm kind of looking for. Do you know what?
Someone's nicked it.
Someone's nicked it. I think this is where the information board was.
I think you're right.
And it's gone. Gone.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
Somebody's very bad.
Very bad. Or it could have just been a windy day.
That would have to be a pretty windy day.
Or was it you?
Well, we walked up there, so we've got to number 2,
Yeah.
a Neolithic gathering place.
Yeah, that's it. So here we are, folks. We're at a Neolithic gathering place.
Who knew?
But seriously, causewayed enclosure. So if it's proper in its proper chronological thing and contemporary with other causewayed enclosures, then we're talking about early Neolithic,
Yeah.
aren't we? Yeah.
So this is the oldest bit up here.
Oldest bit up here, and predating the huge earthworks that we see all around by quite some time. But nevertheless, the importance of the place seems to have gone before it, shall we say. God, my arm aches. So here we are, completely on the top of this quite high up, surrounded by ditches and complicated, confusing banks and
Really are
ditches.
very confusing.
Yeah. And all around of us would have been habitation, would have been people going about their daily business. Now, I wonder if it was like, a medieval castle, say, for instance, where you've got the relatively well-to-do that are living up here, and the rest living down outside the banks.
Maybe.
In those crop marks that you spotted.
and what sort of hierarchy up here as well? Did you have the rich people living right in the middle, keeping them safer, and not so much living closer to the bank?
I've just noticed that I've lit us spectacularly.
I can't see.
On a human scale, that's monstrous.
Staggering how much earth has been shifted.
Yeah.
Have they calculated it? Because they've calculated a lot of things, like how many man-hours to shift all the tonnage of earth to make Silbury Hill, for example.
Yeah.
Has anybody done the maths to figure
For
out
this?
how long? Yeah.
You'd have thought somebody would be challenged enough to have a go. That does outdo Avebury for a bank and ditch.
Yeah. Do you know what?
What?
I'm glad I didn't have to do the digging.
I think I'm with you on that.
Well, we need to do another couple of miles to have walked off the pork pie from breakfast.
Just look at that. 3 rows of banks and ditches. Who conceived that was possible? Tell me who.
They really were making sure, weren't they?
Yeah. It's occurring to me that is nothing less than a pure killing field.
I think that's probably a fair description.
Because whoever's trying to assault this place has got to mount that bank and then come down. So anybody up here, ranks of archers here.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a bloodbath if they did bother. Maybe it was completely preventative. Maybe they knew that would be what would happen. Did it ever happen? Wow.
It is staggering, actually.
Wow. This is what you do if you ain't got bricks. Isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. That's the one thing you can't call this is modular.
Yeah. What you got?
It says here that when Mortimer Wheeler excavated in the 1930s, that inside the entrance here was a cemetery. So this is Iron Age. But near the eastern entrance, a pit with over 20,000 sling stones was found. Small rounded pebbles came from Chesil Beach on the south coast.
Wow.
Imagine going for your day trip to the beach is to go and pick up weapons. That's a grand day out. 20,000 sling stones. That's a lot of stones. And what's the cemetery here?
Cemetery, 52 burials, and some of them displaying multiple injuries. So that's right here.
And there is
One of them seems to have a
an arrow in his-
Roman ballista point straight in his spinal.
So it's an arrowhead of sorts, I guess.
Yes.
This was a war cemetery and the result of a fatal attack on the Hillfort by the Roman army following their invasion of Britain in AD 43. In the 80 years since Wheeler's excavations, ideas about this cemetery have changed. both men and women were buried in the cemetery and displayed evidence of healed and fatal trauma. However, individuals had been carefully buried with grave goods such as personal ornaments, beads, brooches, rings, etc., pottery, and joints of meat. These funerary rituals do not suggest hastily dug graves after a single battle, but rather a cemetery that was used to bury people over a period of time. Some of these individuals were injured fighting the Romans, but it's equally possible that some were involved in local skirmishes. I would say so. The burial of 2 adult males found during excavations of the cemetery, their grave contained 5 pots, and the individual at the bottom of the photograph was also accompanied by an iron axe head, a knife, and a bronze cosmetic implement used to clean the ear.
But I thought cotton swabs were dangerous.
I reckon.
My word, it just keeps on giving, doesn't it?
Do you know what? I keep forgetting about slingshots as well. If you're really good with a sling,
Yeah.
then, you know, you've got limitless weaponry, haven't you, really?
I think probably one of the things that people don't realise about slingshot and arrow and archery and so on and so forth is the accuracy is not that important. It's sheer mass firepower and the rapidity with which shots can be got off. You know, there's none of this arrows in the air nonsense. These are medium, you know, short range weapons, which you're just hurling, shooting.
Yeah, but if you've got a whole row of people firing slingshot, and everybody misses, but you've got a whole row of people who are coming up, doesn't matter who you miss, if you're going to hit the person next to them.
Well, exactly that.
Yeah, I really hadn't thought about slingshot before we saw that panel.
Yeah.
20,000 rounded stones brought from Chesil Beach. That'll sit in my head for a while, really. It just goes on and on and on.
I mean, it's tiring enough just going around looking at it, let alone digging it.
Yeah.
I think we're absolutely knackered, actually. Is that a
fair.
fair comment? It's fair. Fair comment.
It's fair.
I mean,
We've covered
look at
it.
it. You know, we've walked all around it.
And that was the last thing of the day.
Maiden Castle.
Yeah.
Gee. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers, Mr. Skin.
Good day.
Well, an excellent day, if a little exhausting for us poor old bones, but
It was a little bit.
I think mission accomplished. Now, the thing is is there anything, you know, that we need to say to wrap up that we didn't manage to?
Do you know, I'll tell you something that I got from the day that was really nice. We've said so many times in different programmes about the fact that, you know, wherever you are, underneath your feet, you know, that however far down you might have to go, there's the signs of where people have lived before you. And to go to Dorchester and have all that, you know, right there underneath the Waitrose car park, you've got a palisaded enclosure where, you know, how many people lived there over, you know, how many years was that site actually being used, being inhabited? I mean, it's huge lengths of time. So the thousands of lives there, right there under your feet, and they're marked underneath the supermarket. I love that.
Well, I hope what we've done today, does cover that breadth and
Yeah.
gives a sense of that. But even having been there and done it, and having had the extremes of having, sitting atop or looking at at least a 4,500-year-old monument, and
Yeah.
then having a 21st century device land in the middle of it.
Oh, that was quite surreal. Yes, it's got to be said. Yeah, yeah. And in actual fact, we heard afterwards from a local shopkeeper who's been living there for years that it was the first time he's ever known a helicopter to land there. So the one time that we chose to be there wasn't the odds.
Yeah.
We should have gone and bought a lottery ticket.
We've said this before, and we'll probably say it many times again, and that is the thing. What on earth is there buried under our existing conurbations?
Just
How
yeah.
lucky are we, that somewhere like Dorchester has still got these extraordinary places existing in the landscape? Hold on a second. Are we completely disappeared? No, we're fine, I think. Disappeared in the landscape.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult enough to see Mount Pleasant, as you'll see from the overheads and where we are. There's nothing at all in the landscape, but thank goodness we know where Mount Pleasant was and how enormous and how important it must have been.
And hats off to Sue Greeny and
Well remembered.
And the hats off to Sue Greeny and everybody associated on that excavation because.
Yeah.
I think probably...
Well, the
said
original excavation...
the original excavation, long time ago, yes.
Examination was
Yes,
retrospective.
that's very true. But nevertheless, the analysis and interpretation was quite dramatic.
And really useful. That's the important thing in a kind of a modern context.
But the fact that, and I think we probably said it when we were there, but the fact that if something so huge, one of the biggest henges that we know about that ever existed, that if that can completely disappear into the landscape, be completely invisible from the ground, that what else has disappeared?
I said we'd say it again.
Did you say that? I should have said it again, just to be
Pretty
sure.
much.
It's something that it never goes away for me, really. It's
And also the value of us visiting Maiden Castle and seeing the way those ditches were dug out, and the effort that people are prepared to go to. And then you kind of retrospectively apply the same kind of endeavour back to Mount Pleasant. We don't know exactly how deep the ditches were or all the rest of it, but...
You've got to toss in, though, haven't you, that we commented, it's bigger than Avebury.
Yeah.
And we know that the ditch at depth at Avebury was 30 feet, 10 metres.
Yeah.
So it's going to be at least that.
Yeah, something
Probably.
like. Anyway, well, I hope that you've found our little visitations, our day in Dorchester, illuminating, exciting, inspiring, maybe.
We live in hope.
Yeah. What a great place to visit, to be able to be in the presence of so many monuments within such a small reach of each other. And what does that say about Dorchester? Does it say anything particular about Dorchester, or does it just say we're lucky to have the remains at Dorchester and it would have been similar things all over the country? We don't know.
I think that's probably the case, though. Yeah.
So on that bombshell, thanks, folks, for watching. And, see you very soon.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.